I invite now Carlo Ferro on the stage. He's president of the Italian Trade Agency. Welcome, President. It's a pleasure having you here today.
Grazie, Andrea.
Benvenuto.
Nice to meet you.
We can take a seat if you want. And, you know, we heard a lot about the impact of the pandemic and the reopening of the economy on supply chains. And on a daily basis, we report on what's happening. You know, the main international trade channels looks strained and in a difficult situation. But what does it make to you, and how do you see the future of international trade that gave some really strong sign of recovery as the economy reopened?
So good afternoon, everyone. But first of all, maybe we can talk about how Italy is performing there, since once I believe that really we can bring at this forum a view of an Italian industrial system which is exiting from the pandemic much faster, much better than what we did 10 years ago with the 2008-2009 crisis. I brought with me some statistics about the export, since at the end this is a good sign on how different economies and manufacturing systems are reacting. And looking at the very recent data on January to August 2021 in respect to 2019, Italy export posted a 4.9% growth, which means that it's well above the level of pre-pandemic. And that's not necessarily obvious in the context of a recovering of global trade, as I take as a good example for benchmarking the G8 country, because it's excluding some of the Asian economies whose dynamics are and social systems are also different. So Italy is the best performing among the 8 countries. Is performing better than others that are growing, Canada, Russia, and Germany. Japan is about flat. USA, France, and UK are still on a negative. And I believe this is a sign that Italy took a bit longer on exiting from the economic crisis 10 years ago, perhaps struggle, and not even recover all the point, and only one driver at the point has been the export. Today is starting different. It's starting with the export beginning the recovery, but private investment, public investment, and later internal consumption will help as well, as the PNRR, the National Recovery Plan within the context of Next Generation Europe, is an incredible boost to the innovation and to the competitiveness. So if you move from 1 engine to 4 engine, talking to technology people, when on smartphone you start to move from 1 core CPU to 4 core CPU, it's the same different than using iPhone 1 or iPhone 10.
Yeah, that's interesting. And looking ahead, do you think that what we are seeing, so the shortage economy, some tensions, you know, in the supply chains can impact and slow down, especially in Q4, we will see a different dynamics? Or you're confident that the strength, especially of the manufacturing, which is emerging from COVID, more resilient, more digitized, and even more sustainable, because if we look at the data of emission of carbon dioxide, Italian industry is at the lowest level in Europe?
Clearly, the issues that the manufacturing world was addressing before pandemic, we could not dream have been solved by the pandemic. We are back on some of the key challenges, the one of the twin transition, the digital and green transition. Perhaps the more optimistic approach today is based on the fact that after pandemic, we are in a context in Europe whereby there is more political consent and certainly much less financial constraints on investing for addressing those challenges. And then on the recovery path, we are evidently, it's a fact of matter, facing a number of hurdles. The supply chain, the price for freight, the some of shortage of some component, some shortage of raw material. And I would expect that most of them could be transitional. Transitional may mean a number of quarters to go through. Other are more structural, and the more structural have to be addressed. And I make some example. The price of freight at the end, we all study in industrial politics, the case study of a perfect model, demand, supply, and pricing, or elasticity of pricing, and this is the freight. So this, I believe, it's only a matter of rebalancing. Some also may depend on investment and acceleration of investment on technologies that well exist. And this is the case of the shortage of semiconductor, which is an industry I have some experience with. Other can be more structural and requires a higher effort, private and public, to be addressed, which is the availability of raw material critical to the new technologies. The problem of the battery, for instance.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a very good point. Lastly, just one action that you've taken or you're taking to support international trade and Italian trade and exports.
We are really, as a system, moving towards a higher focus on SMEs, higher focus on modernization and digitalization of industrial and organizational processes. Lot we have done, for instance, in the field of the e-commerce. We have created 31 virtual windows of the Made in Italy on 31 e-commerce marketplaces in the world for the Italian SMEs. Lot on the innovation in respect, for instance, to the traceability. I listened earlier Marco Taisch talking about how traceability is fundamental in order to support the sustainability and to market the sustainability as well. We have prepared blockchain technologies in order to support SMEs on adopting those technologies.
All right, Carlo Ferro, President ICE, thanks again for being with us today.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you.